It's the final frontier, the least explored and the least exploited place on Earth. But that could be about to change.
70% of our planet is ocean, and yet today we get none of our metals from the ocean.
We're pioneering a new industry that will reshape America.
Often described as Australia's Elon Musk, Gerard Barron is leading the race to the bottom to mine the floor of the deep sea for vast untouched reserves of critical minerals needed for the world's transition to clean energy.
They're worth a lot of money. I've seen estimates that say $20 trillion.
What's down there does not belong to one company or one country. It belongs to all of humankind.
This seabed bonanza may lie in international waters and belong to humankind.
Got to get their act together.
But that hasn't stopped Donald Trump from moving to cash in.
It's absolutely a major concern when a country decides to take action unilaterally. It is unlawful and illegal.
So valuable and abundant is this resource that the seabed is shaping up as a new battleground between the world's two great superpowers.
If we don't move on this, then China will dominate yet another part of the critical mineral landscape. And so, let's get on with it.
And caught in the middle of this mining battle are the vulnerable ecosystems and island communities of the Pacific, with warnings they could be left with both the environmental damage and the financial liability.
I think the company is exploiting the Tongan people, yes. We are financially vulnerable.
So why are we doing it? And I think it's just plain old greed, right?
On Four Corners, we investigate the fate of the final frontier. It's a battle between protection and exploitation, and it pits Donald Trump's great resources grab against a growing number of nations who want to see seabed mining put on hold. With trillions of dollars at stake, who will win the race to the bottom? It's a place where light does not penetrate. A huge swathe of our blue planet we know relatively little about. And it's home to some of the Earth's oldest, rarest and strangest creatures.
You really get mind-blown by that difference, that ways of life, those colors, those shapes, and how they find their way around in such an extreme environment.
It's like a different world.
It's a completely different world.
In these deep waters, there are sponges that can live for 10,000 years. And most of the species here produce their own light to communicate or to attract prey. And scientists believe there are untold species that we still have not discovered or documented. How much diversity of life is there in the deep sea?
It's actually very diverse. On each of the cruises we had in the last years, we're still getting something on the order of 50 to 100 new species that we find. They are also very rare.
So you're finding dozens of new species with every voyage?
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's been like that for 20 years.
Parts of this dark and remote world, more than 4 kilometres down, is known as the Abyssal Zone. It has existed untouched for millions of years. But for life here, that could be about to change.
If the deep ocean is impacted, it will not recover fast. We don't know how to protect it. The impacts will be severe and permanent.
You wouldn't think there'd be a link between the future of the deep sea and a Caribbean island renowned for rum, reggae and reef-lined beaches. But Jamaica is home to an obscure UN agency with the power to unlock vast undersea resources worth trillions of dollars, minerals sought by superpowers and by speculators alike. The International Seabed Authority, or ISA, was set up in 1994 to regulate the exploitation of the world's deep-sea resources. It may only have a few dozen staff and a tiny budget, but its jurisdiction stretches over half the world's seabed. Can you explain, who does the seabed belong to?
To the whole humankind. It's a pristine piece of the earth that was never touched by humanity before, not in scale, so meaning it's a global common.
Hello, good morning, nice to meet you.
Good morning, Alana.
Alana, what a beautiful name.
Brazilian oceanographer Leticia Carvalho was elected to lead the ISA last year. She's inherited the task of drawing up regulations for mining the deep sea.
Good morning, and thank you for having us here.
Something that has so far been a work in progress for 30 years.
Yes.
The mining of the deep sea was envisioned, and therefore it was envisioned to be heavily regulated. It's taking long because it's a very complex issue.
We've come to Jamaica on the eve of the ISA's most important gathering. Tomorrow begins 5 days of its annual assembly. What happens here could prove crucial to the future of deep-sea mining. The deep sea isn't just home to an array of unique and bizarre creatures. Carpeting the ocean floor of the abyss are vast fields of what look like rocks. But these lumps are much more than that. They're called polymetallic nodules. They're millions and millions of years old. And they contain what some say are the key metals needed to power the world's transition to clean energy.
They lie on the ocean like this one in my hand, and they happen to be filled with all of the critical minerals and rare earths that we're going to need a lot more of in the future. Firstly, we turn 100% of this nodule into saleable product. But the key revenues come from nickel and copper and cobalt and manganese.
Described by media as Australia's Elon Musk, Gerard Barron is the world's leading proponent of deep-sea mining. The founder and CEO of the Toronto-based The Metals Company, or TMC, Barron came from humble beginnings.
Son of a dairy farmer, Australian, proudly so, and went to Oakey State High School, not far from you, Mark, where you grew up, and went to my local university, started my first company at university, and have been lucky enough to be building companies ever since.
So how does the son of a Queensland dairy farmer end up in sort of billion-dollar mining industry?
Well, I grew up knowing what I didn't want to do, and that was be a dairy farmer. And I was always attracted to things that hadn't been done before.
Like his hero Elon Musk, Gerard Barron says he wants to conquer a new frontier, harvesting the seabed 4 to 6 kilometres down for nodules essential to the clean energy transition.
They form the infrastructure that our society depends on, whether it's electric vehicle batteries. Cobalt, of course, is used for batteries, and copper is used for so many things, for electrification. So you couldn't wish for a better mix of metals inside this nodule.
Gerard Barron argues that deep-sea nodule mining for manganese, nickel, copper and cobalt is much more environmentally sustainable than land-based mining for the same materials.
I mean, you're talking about, in the Abyssal Zone, there's like less than 10 grams of life, biomass, and most of that is bacteria, single-cell organisms living in the sediment. You want to compare that with a tropical rainforest?
So there's nothing there to destroy, is your argument?
No. There is stuff there. Everything we do has an impact. The question is, what are the impacts of picking up these guys? And how do they compare to the known impacts of land-based mining? And are we okay with that?
As part of his sales pitch to investors, Gerard Barron claims the deep, dark, frigid seabed is perfect for mining, because it's a place he's called a lifeless desert. something many marine scientists reject.
Yeah, that was the perception we had about 60 years ago. But I think it has been proven over the decades that this is not true. It's very, very diverse.
The diversity in a nodule field is mind-blowing. It's really, really high.
Marine biologist Patricia Esquet is a member of DOSI, the Deep Ocean Stewardship Initiative, a network of scientists, lawyers and governance specialists from more than 100 countries. She spent months at sea studying the nodule fields.
What happens in nodule fields is that the densities, so the amount of animals that live there, are relatively low, but they are highly diverse. That means that, for instance, when we get a sample, it comes with a set of species that are mostly new to science. Around 80% of them will be new to science.
80% of the species?
80% of the species that we find in any other samples is different from other samples that we have.
What the Middle East is to oil, the Clarion-Clipperton Zone, or CCZ, is to polymetallic nodules. Lying between Hawaii and Mexico, the CCZ is larger in area than the European Union.
It's probably the largest area with polymetallic nodules on the planet. It's in international waters. That means that don't belong to any country and actually belongs to all of us, to all of the countries.
For Gerard Barron, the CCZ is home to the motherlode. And his company is among the 17 operators that have been issued with exploration permits by the International Seabed Authority.
The Clarion-Clipperton Zone is the area of interest because it's there that they contain the very high grade of nickel and copper. They estimate there's more than 20 billion tons of nodules in the area where we are focused. They're worth a lot of money. And so I've seen estimates that say $20 trillion, and that probably feels about right.
Barron's company has spent more than $500 million on exploration and research into nodule mining in the CCZ. But like other prospective miners, he can't begin any commercial exploitation until the International Seabed Authority comes up with a set of mining regulations.
It was set up in 1994. Here we are, more than 30 years later, and still the one thing they were meant to do, which was put in place a regulatory environment, has not happened.
The ISA has a complex, some say contradictory role to regulate the mining of the seabed while ensuring its protection. Today, the new Secretary-General presides over her first full assembly of the International Seabed Authority. That's the annual gathering of the 170 members of the ISA. And Four Corners has been given rare access inside the assembly.
I also want to extend thanks for the Jamaican authorities and all the employees.
For ISA Secretary-General Leticia Carvalho, there's an elephant in the room this year, in the form of a man whose country refuses to recognise either the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea or the ISA itself. A man who's threatening the very existence of this agency and its remit, and who's vowing to go rogue.
They got to get their act together.
This year, the US President Donald Trump signed an executive order prioritising the mining of undersea critical minerals. If mining were to go ahead in international waters, areas legally under the ISA's jurisdiction, the Secretary-General is unequivocal.
It's absolutely a major concern when a country decides to take action unilaterally. I would say it is unlawful and illegal and challenges the rule of the law and the multilateral order. And it's a matter, of course, of great concern.
In your opinion, is the Trump executive order even legal under international law?
Oh, absolutely not.
Environmental lawyer Duncan Curry advises the Deep Sea Conservation Coalition, an alliance of 130 NGOs and international law and policy institutes trying to protect deep sea ecosystems. The US regulator says the president's executive order to kickstart seabed mining in international waters will spark the next gold rush.
It's not going to trigger any gold rush. In fact, it's going to open a Pandora box full of problems. I have practiced international ocean law for over 35 years.
Duncan Curry has spent years sparring with Gerard Barron, even appearing in front of a US congressional hearing on deep-sea mining with the Australian entrepreneur. Is Gerard Barron a green energy visionary who could help save the planet, or is he a corporate mercenary out to make billions of dollars?
Well, I think there's no doubt about the latter. He's a corporate actor trying to make money. There's no doubt about it.
Just out of interest, where were you when President Trump signed that executive order?
I happened to be in the White House, yeah.
And I understand you presented something that was delivered to President Trump.
I did. We made a beautiful nodule, which we presented in a resin case, and I have it on good authority that even today, that nodule sits on the Resolute desk in the White House.
At previous ISA assemblies, Gerard Barron has engaged in the debate. But now he's well and truly on board Team Trump and is seeking US permits to mine the Pacific seafloor.
Our country was the first to submit a permit. And it also so happens that our company, the metals company, is by far the most advanced in this industry.
So do you expect then, if Donald Trump is prioritising the exploitation of these resources, that you hope to get going?
Yes. The thing we're lacking is the permit to be able to go and do it. And we're very confident that the Trump administration will provide us that permitting pathway.
Back on the assembly floor, there's a pushback against the US president. Leading the charge is France's special envoy for the oceans.
Et soyons enfin, pour terminer, direct. Les États-Unis enfreignent le principe de non-appropriation de la haute mer et fragilisent le cadre institutionnel du droit de la mer au détriment de tous.
Well, the Assembly has just adjourned for a couple of hours, but before it did, the French Special Envoy for the Oceans delivered a pretty powerful speech for what is usually a sedate chamber, so I've come out to try and find him to have a chat to him. So, Mr. Special Envoy, that was a very passionate speech. For the French, Donald Trump isn't the only threat to the seabed environment.
The company which is behind, the metals company, for me, which is a misfortune company, is not a good partner for that. So
you have concerns about the metals company not being a good partner?
No, extremely bad. We don't need these minerals. We don't have the financial model. We don't have the economic model. We don't have the good technology to go deep.
I'd say that's a bit rich coming from that particular Frenchman. That same spokesman for France was also applauding China for being such an upstanding adherer to international rules and law. I mean, convenient memory, I would say.
China, unlike the US, has been a long-standing signatory to the law of the sea, arguing strongly for a mining code.
世界正在关注着我们，我们需要落实公约的授权。
Under Donald Trump, the debate over seabed mining has become one about reining in America's great rival, because China is dominating the battle for critical minerals and rare earths. Having long promoted seabed mining's green energy credentials, Gerard Barron, just like President Trump, is now warning that these minerals are central to the very security of the United States.
President Xi has made it clear that China wants to dominate deep earth, deep space, and deep ocean. And so President Trump totally understands the precarious position that America finds itself in and is doing something about it. Obviously, we're delighted with the moves that President Trump and his cabinet have taken, and we're ready to go.
And the battleground for this new contest between the world's great superpowers, a place used to being caught up in geopolitical rivalries, the Pacific. Already 2 nations have signed up to be part of Gerard Barron's mining dream, Nauru and Tonga. With 176 islands, Tonga relies on the ocean for food and for income. Tonga has no strategic or mineral resources, so people like Tomasi Tongia rely on seagoing industries like whale watching to make a living.
This is what we love. It's one of the best feelings in the world, to be able to see the smiles and tears of joy when it happens.
Tomasi Tongia is taking me out to see the humpback whales that come to these pristine waters every year to breed and birth. Today we catch up with a mother and her playful calf. These giant mammals migrate for thousands of kilometres to come here, and Tomasi Tongia worries that their long journeys may expose them to the effects of deep-sea mining.
What if deep-sea mining goes ahead and it damages the industry I am working on? How long it's going to take to bring back the whales, or if they will ever come back? Oh man, that hurts, man. This is something that I really want to pass on to my children, my family, the future of Tonga. Hoping for another 100 years or forever, whales will keep coming back to our water.
The potential danger to migrating species and other marine life from deep-sea mining begins with the retrieval of the polymetallic nodules. This process creates 2 plumes of sediment. One caused by the nodule collector on the sea floor, the other higher up in the water column from the cleaning of the nodules themselves.
They talk about the potential sediment plume. Think of that as the dust, like if you drive your car down a dirt path, you'll kick up some dust. Question is, how far does it travel? Well, Greenpeace and others would have you believe that that dust will travel for thousands of kilometres. Yet, in-field trials, when we were doing commercial tests, showed that that sediment plume doesn't travel. In fact, up to 98% of it settles in the area of impact. It's really quite magical.
We know that species are connected over thousands of kilometers, and the question is, if we destroy these large areas in between, if this connectivity is then disrupted. That's just one example. And then the populations may not be able to survive on their own.
There is a concern. The areas to be mined will overlap with tuna fisheries, for instance. And there is a concern that all the toxicity from the plumes, if they are not well managed, will affect those fisheries, of course.
There's more at stake than the ecosystems of the Pacific. The future of some ocean states could be shaped by deep-sea mining. While Gerard Barron is going all the way with the USA, he's hedging his bets. Because he still has his mining exploration permits with the International Seabed Authority. Under the ISA rules, he has to partner with a sponsor country if he wants to mine the Pacific.
So sponsor countries are Nauru and the Kingdom of Tonga. And in return, they would get some benefits, jobs, royalties, local taxes, training opportunities.
So you think the company is exploiting the Tongan people?
I think the company is exploiting the Tongan people, yes. If you are a big company and with lots of financial backup, you come to small countries like Tonga. As you know, we are financially vulnerable.
The Reverend Dr. Ungatea Carter is one of Tonga's leading academics and human rights activists. She's been investigating the Tongan government's links to deep-sea mining and the metals company for years.
I think Tonga government and the metals company are engaged. There has been some exchange of a ring somewhere, and in exchange of some promise of some marital bliss sometimes in the near future. There have been radio programs in which government and metal company, same program, reinforcing each other. And that's why our people are confused.
Dr. Ungatea Carter is scathing about the lack of public consultation and information the Tongan government is releasing about its deal with Gerard Barron's company.
What finances have we received? And those agreements, we don't know.
They're secret.
They're secret. That's the whole point.
Four Corners has seen a recently revised sponsorship agreement between the metals company's Tonga subsidiary and the government. But the key financial details aren't included. Investigations by environmental lawyers suggest Tonga will earn less per year than it makes from its fisheries.
We have actually some more awareness of the kind of amounts that Tonga were being paid. It's not even approaching 1% of the metals that are being brought up. So it's, fractions of a percent is what you're talking about.
So less than 1% of what's
far less than 1%.
The ocean will go to Tonga.
That's right, and they dig themselves deeper into the mess.
So you think Tonga's being used?
Oh, there's no doubt Tonga's being used.
Then there's the legal fine print. The sponsorship agreement overrides Tonga's own laws if there are impacts on the mining company's operation. And if something does go wrong, it's the sponsoring state that could be held liable.
That is one of the key issues that I don't think the government really wants the people to know. And that is that we have signed as a sponsoring state for this company, and that if that company, if there is something wrong, that the Tonga government, and the Tonga government is us, Tongan people, we will be responsible to pay. Definitely it will have the ability to push us towards bankruptcy end.
Despite months of negotiations, Tonga's Prime Minister was unavailable to speak on camera with Four Corners. He then failed to respond to our questions.
I think vulnerable nations and developing states that are not completely qualified and eventually become a sponsoring state might not be able to deal with all the obligations that they have and therefore become non-compliant themselves.
So these countries should be very careful.
Absolutely very careful.
To be perfectly honest, I've often wondered why any state would want to be a sponsoring state. Because there are significant financial and legal risks associated with it, and the benefits are rather unclear.
Back at the ISA Assembly, one Pacific state is fighting hard to have deep-sea mining banned before it ever starts.
What lies in the deep sea does not belong to any one nation or corporation, but to all of us and to the future generations.
Well, Mr. President, let's just get to the chase. Deep sea mining. Why are you and your nation so concerned about the prospect of this going ahead?
Well, first of all, we are ocean people. We like to say that it's part of us. It's where we came from. I think there's two lenses that you have to look at, and one is when you go from the finance side, it doesn't make sense. You go from the science side, it doesn't make sense. So why are we doing it? And I think it's just plain old greed, right?
Well, everybody that's going to make a decision on these issues is sitting in the room.
President Whipps has been one of the leaders of a push to get a moratorium imposed on deep-sea mining, fearing what it could do to Pacific ecosystems. Well, I'll let you go into the chamber. I appreciate your time, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. What would you say to Canberra about what you'd like to see from them on this issue?
Well, definitely would like to hear more from them and come out and support a moratorium. It is important. We have 37 countries now that have committed to a precautionary pause or a moratorium, and we need to encourage others. Australia is a Pacific country, and I think it's important that we have their leadership.
The leading argument for a moratorium on deep-sea mining remains the science, or the lack of it.
It's a science, it's a field of work that is in diapers. We don't even know the basics.
But the metals company says it's spent years and hundreds of millions on exploration and research that proves deep-sea mining can be done safely and sustainably. And as part of that research, TMC engaged Australia's peak government scientific organisation to head a consortium with the task of setting up an environmental management framework for deep-sea mining. The contract was worth nearly $2 million Australian dollars. Yeah, tell me about the work the CSIRO is doing for you and where that feeds and where it goes.
So the CSIRO have a team who've been helping us around the environmental management and monitoring, because of course it's about thresholds, it's about what's acceptable and make sure that we're not going outside of the guardrails. And, you know, I know the CSIRO took a little bit of heat for doing this work with us, but this is the sort of project that they should be working on.
In Jamaica, the partnership between the metals company and the CSIRO has become a topic of concern, with some questioning why Australia's peak scientific agency would take money from a mining company to develop guidelines for what they regard as a potentially destructive practice.
They're good scientists, but being a good scientist doesn't mean that's good policy. And I think that, unfortunately, CSIRO was definitely used in this case by the metals company to try to greenwash the industry.
The CSIRO told Four Corners that its researchers were aware of the controversial nature of the work, but that the agency is independent and delivered impartial and evidence-based research free from commercial influence. Other science has been done on the deep ocean that threatens to upend Gerard Barron's hopes of mining the seabed, and to even rewrite science textbooks. In 2020, respected deep-sea ecologist Professor Andrew Sweetman was commissioned by the metals company to do some seafloor ecosystem research in the Clarion-Clipperton Zone.
When the instrument came up, we downloaded the data from our sensors, and they showed something very, very unusual. Basically, instead of the oxygen going down, it was going up. It's completely black down there, dark. So it was unusual to find oxygen being produced when there was no possibility for photosynthesis to be producing that oxygen. And every time we went out there, we were finding the same thing.
What Sweetman had seemingly discovered was that the polymetallic nodules on the seabed could be producing oxygen. The ecology professor ran repeated experiments on what is now being called dark oxygen. He says each test has suggested that oxygen is being produced on the deep seabed. Not surprisingly, Gerard Barron was unhappy with Sweetman's findings. What is dark oxygen?
Dark oxygen is a brilliant name to a flawed scientific piece of research.
Why is he doing it then?
It's an opportunity to, make yourself a little bit famous for a moment. But I know this will backfire on him big time.
It's been a difficult couple of years on some of the social media platforms. Some of the things that people associated with the metals company have said, I think, are not justified. I wouldn't speak about someone like that. It hasn't been the nicest experience.
Andrew Sweetman is continuing his research on the dark oxygen hypothesis. The final day of the ISA assembly in Jamaica is about to begin. While much of the work is being done behind closed doors, there has been a very public development, one few saw coming. Donald Trump's executive order has been the talk of this ISA assembly, and now in a dramatic twist, the ISA has launched an investigation into the metals company to see if its bid to use the US permit system to mine the seafloor is both a breach of international law and its existing contracts under the ISA. For the Secretary-General of the ISA, the gloves are off, warning that the investigation into the metals company could have serious consequences.
In this case, we will probably have a number of elements, including litigation or sanctions inside of our system that will, of course, target the metals company.
So just to be clear, if this goes ahead, with the metals company, there could be sanctions. You have the powers to do that.
Yes.
As expected, this assembly did not produce a mining code. One thing it did achieve was to expose the widening fault line between those who want to mine the deep sea and those who want to protect it. There was one notable absentee at the ISA assembly in Jamaica, Gerard Barron. While he still, for now, has his exploration permits with the ISA, he's spending his time chasing down what he sees as a surer bet, a mining permit from the Trump administration. Well, I've come straight from the ISA assembly in Jamaica to Washington because this is where Gerard Barron's been basing himself for a while now. And because after speaking to many people and digging even deeper into deep sea mining, I've got more questions for him. Questions about the environmental impact of deep sea mining, about its viability as a business, and also questions about Gerard Barron himself. Let's talk about the company. How much is your stake worth now? I think that the Fin Review in Australia put it at about 120 million.
Listen, our share price is probably double since then, so, you know, but look, it's worth a lot of money, but I think it's not the reason I'm doing this.
So you're not a ruthless corporate mercenary then?
Oh, hell no. I don't think anyone other than maybe Greenpeace or that French guy you talked about would describe me as that. I am very motivated by trying to address inequality. I like the fact that this is going to benefit Pacific Island communities.
Can you explain how your deal with Tonga works, what Tonga will get out of it?
The benefit to these countries will be measured in hundreds of millions of dollars over the coming decades. It'll be a substantial number.
And there's no exploitation of these people?
Oh my goodness. No. I mean, for people that say that, you've clearly never met a Nauruan or a Tongan because, you know, they are well-educated, tough, robust people.
What's your response to the fact that the ISA has launched what some are calling an investigation into non-compliance by contractors? Do you feel that's coming after you?
Well, a few people have asked me, is that ISA announcement about coming after us, and probably somewhere, you know, there is that intention, but I can assure you of one thing, and that is we are the most compliant contractor at the ISA.
Few realize that the green future is metallic, electric cars.
After the Trump executive order, the metals company's share price spiked.
Buy!
As one of the biggest shareholders, Gerard Barron stands to make an even larger fortune. if his company secures a US mining permit.
Gerard Barron, he presents himself as a deep-sea mining veteran. He has never harvested commercially anything from the sea. He's very promotional, but when you ask for the details, it's lacking.
Arno Wagner runs Iceberg Research, an investigative firm specialising in exposing listed companies he claims are overvalued and overhyped. Wagner made his name by bringing down his former employer, Noble Group, exposing fraudulent practices at what was then Asia's largest commodity trader. He also engages in short selling or profiting from the decline of a stock. This year, his firm did a dig into the metals company.
We saw that simply the financial projections of this company were not realistic. The conclusion of the report is to say this is not viable. It's a very sexy idea, very seducing idea to go so deep to find some minerals.
Arno Wagner has also looked into Gerard Barron's past.
Once the company reaches a valuation which he thinks is the maximum valuation possible, he will leave the boat before things get worse, like he did for Nautilus.
Nautilus Minerals was a forerunner to the metals company. It planned to mine around openings on the seafloor known as hydrothermal vents off Papua New Guinea. Gerard Barron invested more than $200,000 in the company to help it get up and running.
Well, let's begin with Nautilus, okay? I was the funder, the seed funder of that company, but I never ever worked for it.
By 2019, Nautilus was struggling so badly it was delisted and went into liquidation.
The company went bankrupt. One government, Papua New Guinea government, invested in Nautilus, and they were out of pocket for around $100 million. Gerard Barron initially invested $226,000, and he made $31 million. Quite a good investment for a company that went bankrupt at the end.
I sold out my shares in 2007, 2008. Okay, I made a lot of money out of it. The PNG government invested in like 2011.
Arno Wagner believes what happened with Nautilus will happen with the metals company.
So he will sell. That's the plan. That's what I believe strongly. And he will probably make a lot of money by doing that.
Listen, short seller reports, I mean, they make it very clear that we have a position against this company. Okay, that's their starting point. And then they just take facts or speculation and try and turn it into an argument against the future value of the company. And I think, you know, this is the most exciting work project that you could ever wish for. And, you know, there'll be no need to abandon the ship.
The vast untouched resources that lie on the bottom of the ocean may be designated by international law as the common heritage of humankind. But never before has the pressure been greater to exploit them for profit.
If we don't move on this, then China will dominate yet another part of the critical mineral landscape. And so let's get on with it.
What are going to be the environmental standards that will prevail? How this creates a precedent that can be followed by others and therefore creating an uncontrollable and chaotic system.
It's possible we will cause the extinction of something that we know nothing about. When something is extinct, it's not coming back, no matter what you do.
I don't think we as humans will want to lose a single species, and many will be lost if deep sea mining goes ahead. It's quite heartbreaking.
And the people promised the most are the ones who have the most to lose. If you could talk directly to the metals company CEO, Gerard Barron, what would you tell him from your perspective and from the perspective of your people?
Well, I would tell them from the perspective of our children, what you're doing could be catastrophic, and you know, you should be responsible. I think we should all be good stewards and not let greed lead.
To see our oceans being positioned as an economic commodity, I think it hits at my identity as a Tongan. I think as a Pacific Islander, it is important to us that our oceans are kept as treasures for us and for our children.